Well, welcome to week 5, or lecture 5, week 5, Advanced Contract Law, today being the 19th of August 2019. And today we are going to be looking at, one of my favourite subject areas, which is the matter of remedies, which is a topic which is often underdone in universities, but not this one, I've got to say. It's very important in practice that one knows about remedies. So without further ado, actually we won't without further ado, first thing I want to do is look at the hypothetical that we had for last week. And for those of you who, like me, don't have it in printed form, I'll just quickly read it out to you. You enter into a contract for the construction of a 100-metre long fence to be completed by 1 March 2018. Materials for the fence were delivered in mid-February, but the workers have not turned up to construct it. Now just imagine that it's, let's say, May 2018. The foreman keeps promising that they will be there as soon as they can, but that the drought has made the ground too hard to put in the posts. Initially you say it's fine, but when you find that the crew has been working on other fencing jobs in similar ground all month, you want to know if you have grounds to terminate the contract. To make your life a little easier, I've got 2 questions up there. The first is, have the fencers repudiated the contract? And secondly, are there any restrictions on your right to terminate? So let's start with the first question. Has there been a repudiation? What do we think? I want to hear what you've got to say, not me. What do you think? So we talk about repudiation, what are we talking about? William? Give your voice up. What is it?
The unwillingness or inability to perform the...
Unwillingness or inability to perform the contract. Yep, I think that sounds right. What cases? You're answering it. Nat, what cases do you think you're referring to? I haven't looked at this one, but it's the one that Mark, the first one Mark would have taught you. Think of beg pardon? No. Can anyone help me with May repudiation case? No, that's infinitive terms. No. What was that good too? No. Ashley, can you help me? No. What about, I'll give you first word, car? Car and Berryman. Yes, it's all coming back now. So car and Berryman is the main case on repudiation. Okay, so you would refer to that to talk about an unwillingness or an inability to perform the contract. Okay, so what are we saying manifests that? We know that it can be words and conduct. You would have looked at a case called Tabali and Progressive Mailing House, which talks about that. So there's another case you can refer to. What acts would you be referring to? Not turning up, that's a good start. What else? Working elsewhere, yep.
I'm trying to understand the facts a bit. Did they lie in the sense that the drought, the weather conditions made it too hard, yet they've been able to perform the jobs elsewhere?
Well, yes, I think the fact they've been giving...
words not...
Yes, they've been providing excuses which are manifestly false. Doesn't help them. Seth?
Could it be that they're depriving us of the benefit of the contract?
They most certainly are. We're not getting our fence built. Absolutely. So all those things we can take together as being evidence of a repudiation, and we could rely upon those. Okay. Can we exercise? Well, if there's repudiation, what can we do? There are 2 things we can do. What are the 2 things we can do? Affirm or terminate. Exactly. Well, the second question is, are there any restrictions on your right to terminate? What do we think? What are the restrictions that we'd be looking at? What are the things that restrict a right to terminate? Fabiano? If the contract's been partly performed, how does that restrict your right to terminate? No. The second half of the last class, we looked at about 4 or 5 factors that restricted your right to terminate. I think you're thinking, of terminating a contract, not like by way of an agreement or by way of an accord and satisfaction. I'm talking about restrictions on your right to terminate. I know where you're coming from, but not for this one. Billy.
Would it be in terms of us in this case having provided a contract that could have affirmed the contract in saying
yes. So that's one issue, or that it might be that we have affirmed the contract by saying that's fine. Okay, so that's one thing. That one of the restrictions is as to whether you've exercised your right to affirm. If you have, bad luck, you can't do anything. But that raises a question about have you affirmed or not. Nia?
And I think that's probably the question that I asked last week, is that it appears that potentially there was affirmation or doing nothing. It doesn't necessarily mean there's affirmation as well.
Yes.
And that's complicated by the fact that then more information, if it was an affirmation, more information came to light.
Yes.
After that affirmation, which could potentially create new grounds for there to be termination. If there was a ready and willingness for whoever the person is waiting for the job to be done. If they were ready and willing, then that was good grounds to terminate.
All right, well, a couple of things we'll unpack from that, but I won't unpack anything for the moment because people have got their hands up. Fabio, you're going to say something about readiness and willingness. Being ready, willing and able. Now, you've got to ask yourself, are you, the person who's wanting to exercise it, are you ready, willing and able to perform the contract? Does that restrict you? I don't think there's any evidence that you're not able, unwilling or incapable of performing the contract. So I don't think that really arises here. What else have we got? Yeah, now I don't know your name. Valentina, what a fantastic name. Valentina, I will not forget your name. I've forgotten Tom's name twice now, but Valentina is a name. Sorry, Tom, Valentina is a name I'll never forget. Valentina. A waiver. Now, the waiver was an interesting one because you will recall we talk about waiver as being a possible a possible restriction in your right to terminate. But remember also that the way the courts talked about it was that we might call it waiver, but in fact what we're really talking about, it might be estoppel, or it might be that you've already exercised your right, or your election between affirmation or termination. So by bringing out waiver, Valentina, you've sort of killed 2 birds with the one stone. So well done. Will?
Notice. Would there have to be sufficient term for notice?
No, we don't need to worry about that so much here. In contracts, sometimes that is a big issue, but that's not in this contract here. Lizzie, you were just scratching your ear. You weren't giving me an answer.
Yes.
I hope your ear is better. Kin, you're a smart bloke. Have you got anything to add to this conversation? Well, that's an honest answer. I like that. So the restrictions here, ready, willing and able is not an issue. Okay, were you going to say something? No, that's okay. Ready, willing and able, it's not an issue here. That's no restriction on us. Is there an estoppel that we could perhaps rely upon? That might be a case here. But the big issue that leaps out at me is, have we affirmed the contract? Now, as Nia was referring to before, the question you've got to ask yourself is, when you said that's fine, did you know all the facts at the time? No, you did not. Does that remind you of a case that we've looked at? Steph, what case does it remind you of? Emma and Uniting Church Trust, exactly. Where in that case we had the party who was said to have affirmed, and there were 2 issues there, did not know all the facts. They assumed something had occurred. Okay, so that was an important aspect of the case. But the other aspect of the case, and Nia referred to this before, is that acts of affirmation must be unequivocal. Exactly. Must be clear that the step they're taking is to affirm. Now, that sits very comfortably with the idea that they must know what's going on, because if you don't know what's going on and you take a step which suggests that you're affirming the contract, how can you say that that's unequivocally a fact of you affirming the contract? It can't be.